For those of you that are online in Whova, we will be monitoring the chat and Q&A. So feel free to post any questions, comments. Looks like there's no comments yet, and we just have the questions from beforehand. So please do use the questions. We'll be able to track and monitor those there. And then for those with comments, feel free to use the comment section in Whova. And with that, we'll get started. So thank you everyone for attending today. For those in the back, can you just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Thank you. Sometimes with the mic, it's hard to know where the sound is carrying. So I want to make sure I'm not too loud or too quiet. All right, so today we'll be talking about learning upgrade and our solution for HSE, primarily GED and HiSET there. So we'll get started with a brief introduction, and then we'll get into, the app, primarily for the language arts and the math side, how students use it, even students just beginning their learning journey to get all the way up to full proficiency. Talk about, how the app is built. We use songs, video, and games to teach, keep students engaged, keep them learning. Then we'll talk about deployment models. And then finally, we'll talk about getting started. So what does it look like to bring a program like this to your school? Today, it's just me. I think I'll have one or two circling in here pretty soon. The line was long at lunch. So the one I'm supposed to have here helping me with the Whova Q&A is not yet done with their lunch, but I will be able to see the questions on my phone. Oh, there you go. Hey, Dan. Thanks for joining. No problem.
Back from lunch, there was no covered.
Yeah, I figured that was the case.
Whova.
No, I let everyone on Whova know we'll be answering it. I have my phone up, so no questions in yet. No, you're good. Yeah. And so learning upgrade and our partners at New Readers Press, our core function is to help organizations deliver life-changing education. And so we do that in our core content areas of English, ESL, math, test prep, and career readiness. So this morning, I did a session focused on our ESL courses, and then tomorrow focused on career readiness. Today will be HSE. But for those of you working in programs that have needs across different areas, all of our courses in the app are available to all of your students. So just because you're coming to us through HSE or because they came through us through ESL, that doesn't limit the activity that students have in the app. You might have them on a certain track, but if they have additional needs in courses elsewhere, or maybe your colleagues do, they'll have access to everything there. So getting started, to kind of start the conversation, where do we come at with our app? So number one is this is from, GED, but who are GED students and, why do we have the app we have to help? So 72% are individuals that have dropped out of high school in their 10th, 11th, or 12th grade year. We have 58% unemployed. And this is, maybe even a little low sometimes from our polling data. When we ask people, why are you pursuing GED? Why are you pursuing higher education? If they're at a literacy center, what brings you to the center? The number one thing is usually to find employment. And then for those that do have employment, to find higher paying employment. And so we really want to make sure we provide them with a pathway for that. And HSE is a fantastic way to do that. Get them, into credit bearing courses at some point, vocational training, job training, and then on a pathway to higher income long term. And then 45% want to pursue post-secondary education. So this is a big one. This is something, these are goals, these are ambitions, these are dreams, and this is the roadblock getting in their way. So, with GED talking to educators, well, what do they say about this? And so you can see here that 81% have lost students due to scheduling and logistics issues. And so that's a challenge depending on your program and where you're located, but it's something our app and our program can really help you with. Because it's app-based, students can learn at home, they can learn at night, they can learn on the weekend, and you can track and monitor all of their activity while they do that. Quite a few states have approval for distance learning. So while students are working on our English, math, and GED prep, you're able to get those credit hours for that. You can see here, when they talk to adult learners in remote locations, they're the ones that usually want these apps or online learning tools the most. In today's economy, it's incredibly expensive to be driving long distances to programs. And so if we can say, hey, maybe 1 or 2 days a week versus 4 or 5 days a week, if we can cut it down to a few days a month, we're able to save those students a lot of time and a lot of money, especially for those that we work with. We're a Southern California-based company in San Diego. And so even short drives can turn into a lot of time. And so that's something that's really important to them. For educators as well, 72% would like supplementary materials for the ELA part of it. And then you can see 68 would like supplementary materials on general test taking strategies. So outside of our HSE prep courses, we also have a work-life skills course, and that really dials things in for students on things like test taking strategies, but even more of the soft skills, interviewing, showing up on time, a lot of things teachers sometimes have trouble with students that haven't been in a classroom setting for some time, taking notes, building out an educational goals plan, things like that. And then 81% of educators are very interested or somewhat interested in exploring more options around distance learning. So in my opinion, I think that one's maybe a little bit overstated. I think most teachers are looking for fewer options, but maybe more targeted options post-COVID. They don't want to be adopting multiple tools, but they do want things that'll provide options and opportunities for their students. And then on the student perspective, you can see here 70% of students interested in pursuing GED are not currently enrolled in an adult education program. So the opportunity is huge. How do we find these students? But more importantly, when they do come to the program, how do we make sure that they stay? That when they set these goals, they have all of the tools available to them to see it through and reach that end goal. And then we can see here, when we talk to students about their work schedule, responsibilities, interfering with classes, that's almost half of them. And that's a major challenge. If you're fully employed, but maybe not making as much money as you'd like, you have a family that you're taking care of. For anybody that wants to take on additional responsibilities to increase their income, it's a real difficult thing when you say, you know what, I'd love to pursue this goal, this HSE goal, but I just don't have the time. There's not enough time in my schedule. Maybe I'm a shift worker and the night shift just doesn't work out for me to then go in during the day. So using an app-based solution like Learning Upgrade is fantastic for those students. They're able to work in their time when it fits in best for their schedule. And then 24% asked, a quarter do not like traditional classroom-based education. From the ones we talked to, it's a little bit general. It's not so much that they don't like it. The general sense we got from our conversations with a large number of students is usually around maybe intimidation. And so if you haven't been in a classroom setting for a long time, and this is especially true when it comes to the math, is it can be intimidating. You're not quite sure where you are. And sometimes you do know where you are, but you're pretty far behind. And so to be in a classroom setting where you feel like you're really far behind, you're maybe a little bit apprehensive to answer questions or even turn in homework where your work level might not be where you want it to be. When you're working in an app, it completely removes that. You're working at home, you're working on site in a computer lab. All of the grading is done in the app, and only the teacher is seeing that. And so you have something that's individualized. You take an assessment, it puts you exactly where you need to be. So you're not just in like this general track of this is the class that I'm in, and on day one, all 40 students are learning this lesson. With an app like Learning Upgrade, the student takes an assessment, and on day one, right after the assessment, they're learning the materials that they need right then and there. And then everything is individualized from that point on, where they're going to be on their own learning journey, different from everybody else in your classroom, but they'll all have that same end goal. Okay. Oh, there we go. So Learning Upgrade is really these 3 parts. Today, we're going to be focusing on the app. And so it's a breakthrough app, and I call it an app because it is an application. But for those that do utilize computer lab, students can utilize this in a browser. So they'll have access on iOS devices, so any Apple device, any Android device, and any browser. We do our best to support devices even going back 7 or 8 years. And so that's something that's near and dear to us. We make sure to buy those prepaid phones, $50 Go phones, $40 Blue phones on Amazon. And so that even our low-income adults that might not have the highest end phones or the highest data plans still have a very smooth and effective learning experience. And then we have our own learning management system. This is where you can track and monitor student progress view reports, make sure students are making progress. From the very beginning, the moment they take the assessment, you'll see how every student did on their English and/or math assessment. And then as they scale up in our English and math courses, all the way until they take the capstone GED or HiSET test prep course, and then of course sit for the actual assessment. And then it's free to start, affordable to grow. And so we had a QR code up at the very beginning. We'll show it again at the end, but you can just scan the QR code, fill out a brief form, and everybody in attendance, if you'd like to have a free license, we'll be able to set you up with that, as well as free training. So that'll be done by me or my partner Belen here. She'll probably be doing it. She's better than me at these things, but she's here to support. And so if you have any questions as well, feel free to ask me, Belen, or Dan. All right, so a little bit about us, just in a nutshell. We just recently served our 4 million student learning upgrade. And so we've been around for quite a long time with our English and math. We're X Prize winners. And so that was an ESL competition. That was what we were talking about this morning. But it was one of the largest field tests ever done in adult ed. It was 12,000 students, and they were all CASAS of 210 or below, so like a third grade reading level or below. And initially, there were about 150 teams that entered the $7 million competition. And at the end, long story short, we were the grand prize winners. Big reason for that is we had the highest CASAS gains for those 12,000 students that were randomly assigned apps to see which ones would have the highest scores. It's a great solution for programs of serving students of all ages. So we work with students that are recently released, formerly incarcerated. We have students, of course, that are in high school transition programs. We also work really well with some of our senior citizens. And so we work in a lot of libraries and literacy centers with individuals that are recently unemployed or individuals coming back to the workforce after a long time. And so because it's app-based, because it's individualized, students can learn in a supportive way. It works for all ages. And then it meets the federal standards. And so depending on which state you're from, feel free to reach out to us. We have all of the general federal standards, but then a lot of the state requirements. Here in Texas, we're approved for distance learning. For those that aren't in Texas, let me know which state you're from, and I'll be able to get you set up with the alignments you need. And then, as I mentioned, it's available on any web-enabled device. We also integrate with SMS text messaging, WhatsApp, and email. So for those that do have more remote distance learning deployments, you can easily do push notifications for students' credentials, keep up to date with them, and manage everything from the learning management system. Okay, so let's get into the breakthrough app here. And before we do that, I can tell a few stories just about students that have gone from the very beginning all the way up to full proficiency. And I like to start here because in a lot of HSE programs, you'll talk to people or you'll have solutions that work for individuals that are on the cusp. And so this is somebody who's already passed a few of the subtests, or maybe somebody who's just a few points away from passing. And there's a lot of programs that work really well for those students. There aren't a lot of programs that work for students coming to your program that have been out of school for multiple years, or in our case that we work with, maybe ever. We work with a lot of refugee resettlement agencies, and these are individuals that might be non-literate in their first language, but they still have goals, they still have dreams, and a lot of them, their goal in California is to pursue HSE and start taking those credit-bearing courses at college and pursue a career of their dreams. So Studio here is one, came to us through UMI Learning Center and put over 250 hours into learning upgrade. Started out with the very basics, learning the alphabet, learning the number line, had never even really done any math. So the app taught her how to do basic addition, subtraction, and then all the way up from there. And did those 250 hours in a blended setting. So she was also receiving in-class instruction. And in an 18-month period, was able to do what would have taken around 5 years, or what was taking 5 years for the other students in her program. And that's something that was incredible to see. She did this with 7 kids. She wasn't working, but I think 7 kids is maybe 3 or 4 full-time jobs combined. And so to be able to do this with the 7 kids, working at night, working on the weekends, was an inspiring story. So I have a brief video you can hear from one of the instructors, and then we can talk about some of our other deployments and use cases.
Hello, my name is Shadia Mahmoud. I teach ESL here at OMI Learning Center. What's very amazing about this program is it really helps them love to learn. It just makes it fun and just more enjoyable. I think it's a great addition to add into our program. We have seen tremendous improvements. They started from basically doing the alphabets to now where they're reading paragraphs and reading sentence and completed sentence. So that's pretty amazing.
And so just by a show of hands, for those of you in classrooms, are you working with students that are just beginning their learning journey? Do you have any of those students, or are most of your students in a position where maybe in 5 to 6 months they could be ready? By a show of hands, how many of you are working with the first group or have students that you serve in the first group? Some? Maybe both? Okay. And the rest of you are working with students who are, you're getting ready and they're pretty much there. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. And this is the last one. And so they do GED in Canada as well. And so one of the largest,
It didn't switch back from the video.
the slide didn't,
Yeah, it still shows the.
there's like a lag. I am not,
Don't know.
I-
I'd like to know. Hey, wait, something's happening. Now,
Okay.
then we're there.
okay. I think there may be just a lag. I hope so. Yeah. So for those of you that are in the hybrid session, it sounds like there might be a lag on the slide. So if you hear me talking and the slide hasn't changed, just know that it will change in a few seconds. And so this is from, one of our larger deployments. And so the unique case here is, again, we're starting out with the most challenging situations. And so with Focus Humanitarian Assistance, they're a part of the larger Aga Khan Development Network. And they support Ismaili Afghan refugees globally, but primarily in the United States and Canada. So when the Taliban took back over, large number of Afghan refugees were displaced. And the goal was repatriation, getting students trained up, vocational training, providing pathways. And it was also during the tail end of COVID years. And so they weren't able to provide instructors on the ground for refugees that were primarily moving through Turkey and India before they arrived in Canada. But our goal was to get them up to where they could pass the GED when they arrived so that they could qualify for job placement. So you can see, our first cohort was 800 pilots. In 6 months, that quickly grew to 2,000. Right now, we're supporting about 6,000 or 7,000 refugees globally. They finished 44,000 hours in those first 6 months and completed 12,000 certificates. And so you can see here, when I talk about serving students that start at the very beginning, I use this as an example because we'll get questions like, how low are we talking here? What English level are we talking? What math level? And so you can see that 92% were starting out at this very, low level, NRS1, CASAS 180 or below, pre-literate, no formal English instruction. And after 6 months of learning upgrade, we were able to get that down to 16%. But most importantly, for students to get ready for our GED prep course, our goal is to have them through our English Upgrade 5. And ideally, we have English Upgrade 6 as well. So we go through English Upgrade 5 and 6. For most, though, if they can get through English Upgrade 5, we'll move them over to our GED and they'll be ready to go. So critical here, you can see that before there wasn't even a % of students who are ready for that. And after 6 months, we have 1/5 of the students that are ready for that. So that's a massive acceleration of students and a much larger percentage of students for this organization that have students now ready. And so they actually fund GED, vocational training, job placement for all of the refugees. So it's been an incredible investment for them of time and resources because now they have a much larger percentage of refugees that can take advantage of their fantastic services. Oh, there we go. And then the last one we'll talk about here is just Sweetwater Adult Ed. They give students the choice in California with GED HiSET, but I'll let you hear from one of their math teachers. But for those that aren't familiar with Sweetwater, we're in San Diego. So the school district between San Diego and Mexico is Sweetwater. And so they have a very large adult school, 4 campuses, 20 offsite locations, and they serve around 25,000 adult learners. So I have a brief video from the math instructor there, and then we can talk about the app itself and how it works.
Hi, my name is Steve Alvarado, and I'm a math instructor here at Sweetwater Junior High School District under their adult ed department. We're here at Chula Vista Adult School. Most students can easily pass, or not so easily, but at least pass on the first shot, the reading, the writing, the social studies, science, but then the math is the part that usually kills them and keeps them from graduating.
My name is Andrew Cruz from Chula Vista Adult School. My goal was to get my HiSET certificate, and one of my math teachers actually recommended an app on my phone which I can use, Learning Upgrade.
So as a teacher, it's you can only do so much. I can instruct, I can direct, I can explain, I can assist, but then once they leave my classroom, it's really the responsibility on them to either do the homework that I've given them or to find another way of doing math. And so for me, I give everyone a Learning Upgrade account, and I encourage them and I expect them to use Learning Upgrade to help supplement the math instruction.
So after that, I just kept on doing the Learning Upgrade, and the third time I took it, I actually got a 10, which was a pretty good score for me, so I felt accomplished after that. And once I graduated, felt good. So my next goal is to actually enroll in Southwestern College, hopefully get my associate's degree, and from there on just keep going. And I'm pretty sure if I can do it, if I pass the HiSET, you can do it too, since you just put in the effort.
All right, so there you got to hear from Steve Alvarado of Sweetwater Adult Ed and one of the students, Andrew, there. And they've been a fantastic partner of ours, providing Learning Upgrade to the students. That blended adult school model is probably what most of you are doing. Yes, looking for Learning Upgrade as a supplemental tool, additional practice for your students. Yeah. So by a show of hands, are there programs that you're currently using that aren't easy to use, not easy to deploy, or are you not using anything? Is anyone not using any supplemental app-based online instruction? So everybody has something. And that's one of the beauties of Learning Upgrade is we work into whatever you're doing, and there really is no secret. The goal, and you saw it with Andrew, it's really time on task. And so you saw he failed the test 3 times, passed it on the 4th try. And so what really was the breakthrough for him was spending time, being able to utilize the app when it fit into his schedule. But most importantly, it's the engagement. And so because we use songs, video, and games to teach, and we have a gamified experience, it encourages students to spend more time. And that really is what it takes, you know, when it comes to any subject that you want to excel in, especially any new subject, it's how much time can you spend. And so you have time in your classroom, and our goal is to increase the amount of time that they're spending outside of your classroom or outside of your instructional hours. And so here's a look at the app. Here you'll see our English courses. And so as I mentioned, we like to get students to take our English assessment the first time they log in. And so they'll get an assessment, it assesses them pretty quick, and then it'll enroll them in the appropriate English course. Now, if students are already, at an English 6, so they've taken the assessment and they're already at the highest level, then we can just throw them directly into the GED test prep at the bottom right that you see there. They don't need any additional support. But most of our students, they're not going to be ready right away. And so the nice thing is the app has courses that'll prepare your students and get them up to the point where they are. Same thing with the math. And so if they need to go back and work on, instructional lessons that they haven't had maybe in 5, 10, 15 years for a lot of our students, doesn't really matter their starting point. We'll take the assessment and get them up to the appropriate level. So why do we show all the courses here? There's something important psychologically, very similar to anything that you'll get in other apps. So if I'm recommending an app to you, I'm recommending a TV show, I'm recommending a book series, the last thing you want is to begin a learning journey and then realize that you can't see it through to the end with the same program. And so if I recommend a TV show and you see there's only one season and it got canceled, the likelihood you'll invest your time there is not high. You don't want to spend time, invest your emotions in these characters and these stories, and then boom, it's over. We like to see stories told all the way through. So we like to show all of the courses here, and that way it doesn't matter where your students are beginning their learning journey. They know that if they stick with this app, they can go from the very beginning all the way up to full proficiency and take that final test prep course before they sit for the test. And so, our focus for programs, most of our programs come to us really looking just to get over that threshold. So that 145 is we're there to get students passing score. Not all students are ready for that. And so most of our students, we're working in programs where we work across multiple departments. And so ESL, literacy, we work in ABE, we work in HSE. We also work in most programs that other companies aren't able to support. So libraries, literacy centers, refugee groups, resettlement agencies. And the goal is, as I've said numerous times, is we take any students and all students and get them up to that passing score, with the goal, of course, of getting them college ready to where they're taking credit-bearing courses. One of the critical things here you'll see, when talking to the students, that 50% are going to be enrolling in college within 4 years of passing GED. And so that's an important thing. We want that well-rounded education so that they can succeed when they take that next step. So when we talk about the app, every single one of our courses is 60 lessons. 1 through 59 are self-paced. Students can work at their own time. Every single lesson starts out with instruction. So we have a narrator introduce the lesson, and then we use music. So that same lesson is done in a song. And then after the instruction that's spoken and then musical, they get to answer practice questions. And that's the gamified part. They answer these questions, and we record over 10,000 pieces of audio for every single one of these courses. And the reason for that is we provide built-in feedback and remediation for every practice question. So as students work through, they might have to answer 20 to 30 practice questions for every single one of those lessons. And it's really frustrating when you talk to a student, especially when they're doing math, and they don't get something correct or they're not sure, and they have to wait till it gets graded. Or they can maybe see the answers in the back of the book for the odd questions. With every single one of the practice questions for Learning Upgrade, they get instant verification if it's correct after they hit submit. But more importantly, if it's not correct, the narrator can show them exactly what they got wrong. So we can walk through the formula, we can do drag and drop, we can do color callouts. But most importantly, if you're doing a workbook, self-study at home, it doesn't really matter how you did on number 5, number 6 is always number 6. When you're in an app-based individualized learning experience, if you do get something wrong, we can scale it back. You'll get provided a question that you're comfortable and confident working on. You can build up your skills. We'll be able to fill in what you didn't understand on the one that you got incorrect, and then you can move back to those types of questions later. So you're not just forcing your way through this 1 through 15, whether or not you understood 1 through 5. We want to make sure that they have all the skills and all the confidence to answer those questions before we move them up to answering things that are more difficult. And that really helps on test day, because it's not just the content that we're teaching them, but all of these tests, or most of these tests now, are not offering the option to do them by hand. A lot of these are computer-based. And so we really design our practice questions to mimic a lot of the online gestures that are required for the test. And so that way there's no digital literacy intimidation for the students. When they sit for a computer-based test, they know they have all of the content knowledge and all of the digital literacy skills to answer confidently. And so these small chunks of learning are going to add up fast. So here you can see one of our English courses, 60 lessons, 1 through 59 are the content areas, again, not timed. 60 is the only time. We call that the final challenge, and that's a cumulative test of everything they've learned on 1 through 59. Students do earn certificates, and so a lot of our programs will print those off, make a big deal as students progress. Again, basic all the way up through 5 or 6, depending on the program, and then they can sit for that GED test prep, and then you'll be able to print that certificate off and they'll know that they're ready. Each one of these lessons is going to take 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the difficulty of it. We find that for our English courses, students, tend to be able to work through those 10 to 15. For some of our higher level math, they're going to have a notebook. They're taking notes on a lot of the formulas. The practice questions do take a little more time. So there, for guidance, you'll want to have them budget maybe a little bit more time when they're working on those lessons, 15 to 20 minutes. Each one of the courses, we built in time here for repetition to mastery. If they don't pass a lesson on the first one, some lessons do repeat. And so you need to get about 25 hours to complete an entire course. And so you saw with that student at the very beginning, studio, starting at the very foundational courses and lessons for English and math, that could be a 200 to 300 hour learning journey. That's not going to be the case for most of your students. Most of your students will take the English assessment, probably place somewhere at 4 or 5. In math, they'll probably do the same, maybe even higher, 6, 7, or 8. And so they might only have 1 or 2 courses to take for English. In some cases for our students, 2 or 3 for math. And so they're not looking at a ton of time. In the course of a year, if they can allocate 90 minutes a week to this, they'll be amazed how quickly they accelerate their learning journey. And in cases that take 2 to 3 years for some of our students that are maybe just starting their pursuit of this, that could cut their 3-year journey down to 2 or maybe even 1. And here's a look at what we're talking about for the instruction. So again, when you're working on things that are difficult to teach in a workbook setting, color callouts of coefficients, when we're doing multi-step for the quadratic formula here, and then working on documents, having ribbons come to life. But bottom right, working on volume of a rectangular prism, can be a difficult one when you're looking in a 2D workbook or maybe even a book. But we can actually move 3-dimensional shapes for you. They can fill these in with unit cubes. They can look at base times width times height. But most importantly, when they're filling in the formula, they're getting practice doing things like long presses, drag and drop. Everything is green. They've dragged and dropped all of their answers. They click go. And instantly we can give them the visual cue in red, what was incorrect. So it says, those are the incorrect ones. The narrator comes on and we can drag the numbers to the appropriate spot. But more importantly, after this, we'll scale it back and we'll actually go through the base times width times height practice questions again. We want to make sure they understand that. They can answer those questions. Then we can get back to calculating the volume of a cube. And then again, we have the standards. So we have those in PDF form. And anybody that needs those, I'll have my email on the final screen, drew@learningupgrade.com, and I'll be able to get those sent to you. All right, and so here's a look. So students that do go through our GED, this will be the course that they're working on. So for those of you, are you looking, for those of you that aren't looking for the introductory, like let's get students ready from any level, for those of you that are just looking like, hey, I need students test prep now, they're ready, maybe they're a few points away from passing. Okay, so for those of you, you can just directly enroll students here. They'll get up to speed fully, and our success, you heard from Steve Alvarado, but from a few of our other programs, I have a great white paper from Sweetwater. They're using HiSET that shows for students they can get 25 hours on Learning Upgrade in a year. And in a lot of cases, these students were doing it in a term. It was like 85% of them went on to pass. And so if they can spend the extra time, it's the practice, it's the lessons, they can very quickly get themselves up to speed. And just like Andrew, even a student that had failed 3 times, he got on Learning Upgrade. He started with our pre-algebra to fill in some gaps. Then he took our GED math and was able to pass. And then for our GED reading, we do have a lot of other lessons in here. I was just doing a demo with NCFL. And so the students are, loving not just the English and the full path up to here, but for our earth science, life science, timelines, one of the big ones that, we talked to students they were struggling with is a lot of the graphs and reading graphs and interpreting graphs. So our practice questions, we were able to, pretty much copy, not copyright infringement copy, but copy the same format as the test. So our goal is to get students very familiar with the questions, very familiar with the format, and give them all the success. So for those of you, again, that need students ready today, we do have these test preps ready to go. And then the pre-algebra, this is for most of our guidance. If you have students that haven't passed math, maybe they've taken it multiple times, they're a few points away or multiple points away, we find that the best accelerated pathway to passing math is to do pre-algebra first, actually, is not to just jump into GED math, is do pre-algebra. That tends to fill in the majority of the gaps that students have. And then we can take the GED math prep and they'll be good to go. So for setting expectations on student time, as I said, if we can get 90 to 120 minutes, that's when we see the big acceleration, but even an hour a week. And so for students that don't have an hour a week, or they tell you they don't, the exercise I like to do when I go into classrooms is have everybody take their phone out. We're not going to be sharing this, but just look at your app statistics. We can all see our app usage statistics. And for most of us, it's horrifying, at least for me. You know, the time I spend on social media, you know, and it's a little bit different when you're traveling because I'm allowed to watch Netflix for a 3 or 4 hour flight. But even on the weekdays, I spend a little too much time on apps that definitely aren't educational. And so we'll ask the students, you know, take out your phone, look at the app usage statistics. How much time do you spend on your phone? Anybody over 5 hours? In some classrooms, it's every single person, and it's not even late in the day. And so we say, hey, we're not asking you to get rid of all of your phone time. Phone time's fun, enjoy it. But if you can just give us 30 minutes, 3 days a week, take some time out of those other apps, and you'll see how quickly your learning accelerates. So that's just a fun exercise I like to do. Your teachers, I'm sure you have a bunch of other fun ways to get the students motivated. But that's one where they can instantly see that they actually do have the time. And if you can just get them to start, the app acceleration learning journey takes off on its own. And then for the full pathway, again, this is what students can expect, is even if they're starting from the very beginning in their English and/or math journey, we can get them up to full speed. On the test prep side, we also have TOEFL and IELTS. So for those that need that English learning test, then we have prep for that. We get them through GED. And then for students after GED, again, a lot of them are starting to look for resources. So what's the goal is, you know, employment, higher earnings. And so we have a 60-lesson digital literacy course to prepare students for the jobs of today and tomorrow. We have work-life skills for soft skills. And then our big one is financial literacy. And so this is one that they really need to be at that GED math level to really benefit from. But as they get these new jobs, they have these new career opportunities. Our country is absolutely rife with financial exploitation of the individuals that we serve. So we want to make sure that they have a robust financial education so that when they do start making additional money at new jobs or better jobs, that they can save that. And then one of the other big ones when we pulled GED students at Sweetwater is, you know, what are your goals after this? And the number one answer was they all wanted to go into business for themselves. And so we made sure that for financial literacy, we have a bunch of small business lessons. So this is something that'll be appealing to a lot of your students, is when they do go on to that next step, is they have lessons on sales and marketing, bookkeeping, putting together businesses, differences between things like sole proprietorship and partnerships, and what are the implications of that when you're taking out business loans. And so all of these courses are available to all of your students. I know focus is HSE, but for your students, all of these will be available. All right, and then I have one last video, and this is an interesting one. This is with the Somali Bantu Association. They have a lot of their students pursuing HSE there. And you'll be able to hear from one of our buddies, Saeed, and then we'll get into the deployments and then wrap it up.
I run the Somali Bantu Association of America. We have over 12 computers right now running, and we get today a new donation coming for 5 computers to make it up to numbers for 40 people to be available to use. The learning upgrade program, it changes a lot. Now a lot of people getting airport work, some they're getting in Hilton work because of the program helped them how to speak and how to talk and how to communicate and everything.
They're doing cool programs here, learning upgrade, where they learn math, English, science, writing, and all like the cool projects for them to get prepared for high school diploma or GED.
I come here every day and use my software for the learning upgrade to improve my English level.
My goal is I want to learn English, improve my English. That's why I can reach my goal to get a better job.
And my future in San Diego is to get a more education and for my kids, for our kids, and learning program and to enjoy this program and to buy a house and to stay with our kids and stay out of the trouble.
What's happened here is that between the tutor, Medina, and this lab full of computers, they've been able to make some magic happen, which is basically to get adults who basically cannot even read a word of English to where you have literate adults who are reading and writing and speaking.
When we came here, it's a lot of change for us. Like we have a freedom of driving. I wasn't expecting myself that I'll be having a car and I will be running this big office and helping refugees. I wasn't expecting. It's just my dream thoughts. But now my dream come true.
All right, so that's a look at the app and its use cases. We'll just briefly cover the learning management system, more of what's possible. For those of you that are interested in getting started with a free learning upgrade license, we'll provide training and support for that as well at no cost. And so we'll just set up a Zoom session, and then with myself or Belen, it can be as short as 15 minutes, as long as you need. You can invite staff, colleagues, anybody else that you'd like to be a part of this. But on the teacher side, our goal is to make things as simple as possible. You have no extra time in your day. And so we are not trying to create a system that's going to overly complicate things for you. Very simple tile-based interface, similar to Google Classroom. So any simple, easy to use LMS you've used before, you'll be completely familiar getting started with Learning Upgrade. It starts out by creating classes, and then you have two really straightforward ways to get students onboarded. Number one is you can upload a spreadsheet template. So that means you just take your roster, you have 50 to 100, 200 students, you throw them into the template, you get them uploaded, and then you can add those courses. So for some, you'll just be adding the English and math placement test. For others, if you know that they're going to be ready for the test prep, you can just enroll them in the GED test prep courses, and they'll be good to go. So that's with the template. The other option is you can do student self-enroll. So a lot of our programs use this. You can just generate a self-enrollment code, and then you can put it on a corkboard, or you can post it to whatever your current student information system is, and it has localized language instruction. So I think we have like 8 or 10 languages now. If you need another language, just let us know, and it'll explain to the student, this is how you download the app. Here's a QR code where you can download it. Here's a 7-digit code that you put into this field here, and then it'll automatically create their account wherever they may be. And in the learning management system, you'll be able to see when those students were enrolled and track their learning journey. So those are two options, student self-enrollment or spreadsheet-based enrollment. Once the students have their accounts created, everything is automated. So there's really nothing else you have to do as a teacher. Their entire journey in the app, the second they have their account created, they log in, they take an assessment, they're placed in the appropriate course, and everything is done in the app. You can sit back, track and monitor their progress. And even if you don't want to log in again, some of our teachers don't, you don't have to. We'll send you monthly emails, and it'll have all the data and reports that you need. You can just check those emails as we send them, and you'll be able to track and monitor progress that way. For those that are more power users, maybe you have state, county, district data requirements, we have all of the powerful tools as well. And so we can add things like that into your dashboard. You can run custom reports based on certain times. Maybe you want to filter out certain courses. I'm only responsible for math or English. Maybe you need to see timestamps for every session that they've interacted with the app with hour sub-scores, and that way you can report that. If you want to track their activity in class versus out of class, anything that you need as far as data requirements go, just let me know. And if we don't have it, I'll create something custom and we can put it in your dashboard. So it's one of those things I can positively say we never hear negative feedback on is the learning management system. And the reason for that, I think, is because it's simple to use on one side, but very flexible and customizable on the other. And one thing Belen will tell you, and Rachel, her colleague, is that there's nothing we like more than getting feedback from teachers, because our 3 or 4 most popular reports were reports that were requested by a teacher. And so it was something we didn't have. A teacher says, hey, my life would be a lot easier if instead of doing this in 3 clicks, it could be done in 1 click. We'll create it. And then we hear from a bunch of other teachers, oh, that's the best report. Why didn't you have it earlier? And it's like, sometimes squeaky wheel gets the grease. So always feel free to be the squeaky wheel. We absolutely love that. And then for some of the reports, again, we'll go over this in a training session, but we have student monitors, so you can see kind of tile-based every lesson as they're completing it. We also can take their progress and give you projections for CASAS, NRS, and other scores. And that way you can see exactly where they might line up based on their activity. You can print off certificates. So we have certificate reports. We have individualized student report cards. And that way you can see exactly how they performed on the assessment, but most importantly, how they're improving across different subscores over time. So if they did get placed in, let's say, Math Upgrade 5, you'll be able to see that initial assessment score. And then line by line, as they make progress, okay, it's great that they're making progress, but is that in fractions? Is that in decimals? Is that in the higher level math? Is it in the data and statistics? Is it in algebra? Maybe they're actually making progress in just one subscore, but really struggling in another. So those report cards are very valuable as you track those things by week or by month. For some of our programs, especially the ones that use tutors, it's very valuable for the tutors. Students work through the program. Instead of spending my first few sessions gauging where the student is, I can look at the report, and on day one, we're jumping into the support materials that they need now. And then some best practices. So this is going to be for those of you that would like to get started with the free license. So, it really starts with training. That's today. That's the introduction, making you aware of the app that's available, the learning management system. Most of our programs are self-starters, and so they get that first email, they log in, and it's really self-explanatory. We have a wizard in the LMS that guides you through the steps of this is how you enroll students. Most teachers, though, if they do have time, really benefit from setting up a training session. And so again, it can be as short as 15 minutes with Belen or I, and we can just get all those questions answered. Because what happens a lot is I'll have teachers reach out to me 3 or 4 months after, like after the pilot, and say, you know what, I really wish the program did this. And I was like, oh, that was just 2 clicks away. And so sometimes it really helps is after you log in and get a chance to see it, to just set up a quick session, whether that be the first week, second week, third week, whenever it fits into your schedule, and we can go over how to get things set up to best serve your program. So that's step 1. We go over account creation, and then the student learning journey begins. They take the placement assessment, or they get directly enrolled, and then they can begin their journey of accelerated growth. Our goal is to get them to finish 1 full course in this pilot. So in that first 4 months, get that first course finished. You can track and monitor progress. And then at the end, we'll evaluate growth together, see if it increased the rate of students that are ready for HSE or the students that are passing tests. And then we can have conversations about continuation from there. But we're not really strict on the time constraints for pilots. It's usually 3 to 4 months. But given that we're, here in March, for those that aren't in session in the summer, sometimes that complicates things. So it's like, we're going to be here and then we're going to have a month or 2, and then we're going to be taking a break. For those that have session in the summer, it's fantastic. We'll work all the way through. For those of you that aren't, feel free to let us know, hey, we're going to pick this back up in the fall. That's no problem at all. And then for models, as you saw from our videos, the vast majority of programs we work with are blended. So that means they're providing, in-class instruction. They have teachers. Most of the programs we work with are going to be credentialed educators. As you saw with our Somali Bantu Association, in some cases it's not. Sometimes it's education facilitators, we call them. Those cases, the app does a little bit more of the heavy lifting. But in most of our deployments with credentialed educators, they're doing the heavy lifting. And the app is that supplemental instruction that increases their time on task. So our job is really just to amplify what you're doing, give students additional opportunities to practice what they need to be working on. And that's what's going to accelerate their learning journey. Now, what we do find is when students start having success, they tell others. And so we have no problem supporting anybody in your community. And so that, in a lot of cases, is 2-gen learning. For me, in Southern California, I work with migrant education. And so in migrant education, I'll go to Saturday academies, and I'm working with students that are 4 and 5 years old. I'm working with adult learners that are going to be 50 and 60 pursuing GED. And so in those cases, we just give everybody learning upgrade. They are working in different computer labs. And then during the week, they're able to utilize learning upgrade, usually on shared devices at home. Many of them work in agriculture. And so the great thing for migrant education in California is we're able to track and monitor their progress as they move throughout the state, as they go back to Mexico, which is like 60% of our students, the others in other countries in South America, Central America and South America. And then we're able to keep tabs on their learning journeys. That way, when they do come back, we're not going in blind. We say, hey, you've been doing all this activity. We know where you are. You're here for 3 or 4 months out of the year. So if any of you work in, areas where you're supporting migrants, if you're supporting anybody that needs assistance, even if they're not in your programs, just let us know. We're always more than happy to donate courses for them. For fully remote, then it's an obvious solution there. One of the big ones we do also is instructional support for utilizing WhatsApp. So I didn't talk about that today, but a lot of our programs, especially the refugee organizations, the number one way that people are communicating with each other is through WhatsApp. And so he said, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just use WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is built into our learning management system. When we send students credentials, you can do SMS, text message, you can do email. Most of our students like receiving it on WhatsApp because WhatsApp doesn't cost anything. Most of us are on free data plans where, text and talk are free, unlimited data. For some of our learners, they're not. And many of them came from countries where they were definitely not. And so for any of you that have had data plans in other countries, it can be crazy how quickly the cost goes up. So because of that, many have adopted WhatsApp as the primary messaging platform. And again, if you're having a tough time communicating with students, getting students to interact with each other, interact with you, practice their English, we do a lot of professional development on this. We create WhatsApp learning circles through the WhatsApp communities. They're using Learning Upgrade to learn. And then we have a bunch of prompts in a shared folder where they can drag and drop a poem and they can say, read this poem in English. And then for our lower level students, give us a 1 or 2 sentence response in your first language. And then the other students can respond to that and they get feedback, start conversations. As they get up to our higher levels, fully proficient, then we'll drop it in a poem or we'll do maybe an essay, a biology passage, and then we'll ask the students to respond in English and then they start their own conversations. And so for those that have students that are in person regularly, you can have those conversations in person. For those that maybe don't, this is a great way to get students to practice their conversational English and also get confident responding to questions, reading, nuance, interpretation, and things like that. Tutor-based, we work with a lot of libraries and literacy centers. And so their wait lists are the name of the game. So we work with Queens Public Library, LA Public Library, just started a program with Delaware Literacy where we're working with libraries in Delaware. And the big thing is the tutors just haven't come back after COVID. The numbers of tutors have really fallen off. And so wait lists have gone up. And that's really depressing for a student. It's like you're having a difficult time. Maybe you're unemployed. Maybe you would like to pursue a new job. And you get up the confidence to call your local adult school or community college or library. And they say, that's great. We're going to pair you with a tutor in 9 months or 12 months, or maybe even more. And so the great thing here is they can get the students enrolled in Learning Upgrade right away over the phone, or if they come in person, the students that are completing Learning Upgrade courses at the fastest rate get a chance to move up the waiting list. And then the tutor knows exactly what the student needs help on when they get there. We also have an online notebook. So in most cases, they can, take notes in their own notebook. You can also print this out. It's a free PDF where you can have the student take notes. And this is really helpful in those learning circles. We can give guidance there. So this is no cost at all, ever. We never charge for this one. And then getting started again, it's free and you can get that training included. So this is the QR code I was mentioning. For those of you that didn't get a chance to scan it or fill it out at the beginning, all you need to do is scan the code. There's just a few fields on the form. You'll fill out your name, your school, and then it'll ask you how many students you serve. Don't worry about that one. It's not too important. Our goal there is just to know where to set the pilot allocation. And so, you can set it as high as you want. There's no limit on the number of students that you can cover there. And then most importantly, this is an HSE talk, but if you have colleagues that would like to utilize the program for something else, feel free to just let us know, and we'd be more than happy to include them in anything there. Oh, perfect. Okay. So, and for those of you that don't want to fill out the QR code form, Belen has a paper copy. So if you prefer to fill out a paper copy, just let Belen know. You can raise your hand, and she can walk those over. Any paper copies? No, everything's okay. So the thing is, when you fill it out online, it actually is a lot faster. So we don't have to transcribe the paper copy. So thanks for scanning those, getting those filled out. And then we'll be able to get you your pilots. And then we'll be reaching out, hopefully within the next week. I think I get home Wednesday night. So I'll do my best to process everything Thursday, Friday, no promises, but definitely by early next week. And then we'll be able to reach out, see if you need training, and you can get started. So that's it for me. Are there any questions? Yeah, good question. So our target is to get 3 to 4 months, so a quarter, but we aren't strict on that. The goal is for you to let us know what would be the best pilot time structure for you. So for some programs, it's like, hey, we want everybody to get through this in a month or two. For others, they might say, you know what, we're not doing anything in the summer. Let's do it in the fall, 4 or 5 months. So general, we set it for 3 to 4 months. But if you have different needs at your program, just let us know. Mm-hmm.
So what in addition do you get paid for?
So you know what? The pilot is actually unlimited. There's no tier in the pilot. Like everything that a paid user would get, the pilot gets. There's no limit in the number of students. All of the teacher, admin, LMS access, all of the reporting, the training. And so, yeah, it really is, there's no cost. As much as you want to use it, as many people as you'd like to have access at the student or the teacher admin side is included.
So how much training outside?
So the training would be via Zoom. Where are you located? So in Georgia, that would be Karen. And so where in Georgia? Okay, so definitely over Zoom, but potentially in person. We would just talk to Karen and see if it would be possible with her. But she lives in Atlanta or north of Atlanta. Yeah. So we can definitely talk to her and see if it's something where she can do in person, if it's going to be like a really large group. But yeah, usually it's via Zoom. And then for those where we can go in person, then we'd be more than happy to do that.
This is not what I expected. I thought we would go through the app, through the lessons.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, and so one thing is with the pilot, in all the teacher accounts, we have what's called a teacher whiteboard. And the teacher whiteboard is an unlocked version of everything we have. So everybody will also get set up with that. And so that would be an option for like going through lesson by lesson. For most of our teachers or tutors, they like to do that for whole class lessons. If you have like a smart board projector, then you can do that in class. And then a lot of the times you just want to see, hey, what are the students working on? And then you can do that as well. Any other questions? No? Well, let you out 10 minutes early. I'm not sure if there's another session right after this. I think there's a little bit of a break, but if there is a coffee spot, you'll be the first ones there, hopefully. All right, thank you.